The faint scent of salt and sunscreen still clung to Chloe's hair, a cruel reminder of the turquoise waters and sun-drenched beaches she'd just returned from. My sister, Chloe, was practically glowing, a deep, even tan adorning her skin, a stark contrast to my own pale complexion, which hadn't seen much more than the fluorescent lights of the local library and the muted glow of my bedroom lamp for the past 2 weeks. She was perched on the edge of the kitchen counter, recounting tales of parasailing over crystal-clear oceans, sipping exotic drinks from coconuts, and dancing under a canopy of stars. My mother, Sarah, sat across from her, a beatific smile plastered on her face, occasionally interjecting with a proud, "Oh, darling, tell Eleanor about the fire dancers again," or "Did you show her the seashell necklace you found?" Each word, each shared glance between them felt like a tiny, sharpened shard of glass twisting deeper into my chest. I was Eleanor, and I was 17. Chloe was 18. For as long as I could remember, Chloe had been the sun around which our family orbited. She was louder, more outgoing, effortlessly charming, and undeniably beautiful in a way that always seems to overshadow me. I was the quiet one, the one who preferred books to parties, the one who found solace in creativity rather than social circles. My mother adored Chloe, saw her as a reflection of her own youthful vivacity. My father, a kind but often absent man, rarely intervened in the subtle yet pervasive favoritism that defined our household dynamics. I'd grown accustomed to it, or so I told myself. But this trip was different. This trip had broken something fundamental inside me. It had started innocently enough, a few months prior. My aunt, my mother's sister, who lived in a small coastal town in a different country, had extended an invitation. She was celebrating a significant milestone birthday and wanted to treat us all to a week-long stay at a beautiful resort near her home. The email had been addressed to the family, a warm, open invitation for all of us. I had envisioned it immediately. The 4 of us, Mom, Dad, Chloe, and me, exploring new sights, laughing together, finally experiencing that elusive family unity I'd always longed for. I'd never been out of the country, never seen an ocean that wasn't gray and cold. The idea of sun and warmth and a truly exotic adventure filled me with a giddy anticipation I hadn't felt in years. My mother had read the email aloud, her voice brimming with excitement. Chloe had shrieked with delight, immediately pulling up images of the resort online, pointing out infinity pools and swim-up bars. Even my father, usually reserved, had smiled. And I had felt a fragile hope bloom in my heart, a hope that this time I wouldn't be forgotten. Then came the inevitable conversation. My father, ever the pragmatist, had raised the issue of flight costs. "It's a generous offer from your sister, Sarah, but the flights for 4 of us will be substantial. Have you looked into prices?" My mother had waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, don't be a spoil sport, Robert. We'll make it work." But the seed of doubt was planted. A week later, the truth, or what I was told was the truth, had descended like a guillotine. I was sitting at the kitchen table, sketching in my notebook, when my mother approached me, her expression a careful blend of regret and forced cheerfulness. "Eleanor, darling, we need to talk." My stomach had tightened instantly. I knew that tone. It was the precursor to bad news, always delivered with a sugar-coated apology. "Your father and I have been looking at the flight prices," she began, avoiding my gaze, picking at a loose thread on her sweater. "And, well, they're just astronomical. Simply astronomical. We simply can't afford 2 tickets." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. 2 tickets. Not 4. My breath caught in my throat. 2? I managed to croak, my voice barely a whisper. "But Aunt Helen invited all of us." My mother finally met my eyes, her own filled with what I now recognize as practiced remorse. "I know, sweetie, I know, and we're so sorry, but it's just not feasible. We've crunched the numbers every which way. It's either Chloe goes or no one goes, and Chloe has been so looking forward to this, with her finishing high school and everything. It's a graduation treat." A graduation treat. Chloe had graduated a year ago. I was the one graduating this year. The injustice of it was a physical ache. "But I'm graduating this year too," I mumbled, my voice trembling, "and I haven't been anywhere." My mother sighed, a theatrical put-upon sound.
Eleanor, please don't make this harder than it already is. We're truly heartbroken we can't take you both, but Chloe has already booked her time off work, and it's a done deal. We can't back out now. Maybe next year, darling. We'll do something special for you. Next year was a phantom promise, one that had been whispered to me countless times over the years. It was the deferral of my desires, the gentle dismissal of my needs. I looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw not a mother heartbroken by a difficult choice, but a woman making an easy one. Chloe was the priority. I was expendable. The words, "we simply can't afford 2 tickets," echoed in my mind, a hollow, mocking refrain. I didn't argue. I couldn't. The disappointment was too vast, too overwhelming. I simply nodded, my vision blurring, and retreated to my room, the sanctuary where I could weep unseen. I heard Chloe's excited chatter from the living room, already discussing her packing list with Mom. The sound was a hammer blow to my fragile heart.
The next few weeks were a blur of forced smiles and carefully constructed walls. I watched Chloe excitedly pack, her suitcase bursting with swimsuits, sundresses, and expensive new sandals. My mother hovered, offering advice, helping her choose outfits, a warmth in her eyes I rarely saw directed at me. I kept to my room, immersing myself in my studies, trying to numb the pain with textbooks and essays. I pretended not to hear their joyful planning, the excited phone calls to Aunt Helen, the detailed discussions about resort amenities. One afternoon, just days before they were due to leave, I overheard a snippet of conversation that chilled me to the bone. My mother was on the phone, her voice hushed, almost conspiratorial. "Yes, Helen, it's all sorted. Chloe is absolutely thrilled. And yes, the extra cash will be perfect for her excursions. She deserves it after working so hard." Extra cash. Excursions. My mother had told me they couldn't afford 2 tickets. Not that they couldn't afford Chloe's ticket plus extra spending money for lavish excursions. A cold fury began to simmer within me. It wasn't just about the trip anymore. It was about the lie, the blatant, cruel deception. They hadn't just chosen Chloe. They had actively chosen to mislead me, to make me believe in a financial hardship that didn't fully exist, all to justify their favoritism. I started paying closer attention. A few days later, I was looking for a specific book in my mother's study when a bank statement slipped out from under a pile of papers. My eyes, almost against my will, caught a line item, a large withdrawal far exceeding the cost of a single economy flight, labeled Chloe's Trip Fund, and another, smaller but still significant amount, transferred to Chloe's personal account. It was clear. My mother had not only paid for Chloe's ticket, but had also given her a substantial sum for spending money, while telling me there wasn't enough for my ticket. The betrayal was absolute. It wasn't just a matter of preference. It was a calculated act, a deliberate exclusion masked by a lie. My heart hardened. The tears dried up, replaced by a cold, sharp resolve. I would not forget this. I would not let them forget it either. The day they left, I offered a terse goodbye, avoiding eye contact. My mother hugged me, murmuring, "Be a good girl, Eleanor. We'll miss you." Chloe gave me a quick, dismissive wave. I watched their cart pull out of the driveway, a strange mix of relief and profound emptiness washing over me. For 2 weeks, I would be alone, and in that solitude, a plan began to form. I spent the first few days in a quiet rage, nursing my wounds, replaying every slight, every dismissive comment, every instance of favoritism. But then, something shifted. The anger began to morph into something more productive, determination. If they thought I was just going to sit home and mope, they were sorely mistaken. I would use this time. I would prove to myself and to them that I was not the forgotten, easily dismissed younger sister. I had a small savings account, mostly from birthday money and odd jobs, amounting to about $1,000. It wasn't enough for an international trip, not even close, but it was a start. I started looking for ways to earn more. I put up flyers for babysitting, dog walking, and tutoring. I sold some of my old, unused possessions online. I picked up extra shifts at the local bookstore where I worked part-time. I worked tirelessly, fueled by a simmering resentment and a growing sense of purpose. Every dollar I earned was a tiny victory, a brick in the wall I was building for myself, separate from their skewed reality. I also started researching. Not for a vacation, not yet. I researched scholarships, grants, and opportunities for independent travel for students. I spent hours in the library, poring over brochures and websites. I discovered a summer program for aspiring writers in Ireland, a place I had always dreamed of visiting. It was competitive, required an essay, and was expensive, but there were partial scholarships available. It felt impossible, yet the thought of achieving it on my own, without their help, without their approval, was a powerful motivator. For 2 weeks, while Chloe was sipping cocktails on a beach, I was working, studying, writing, and dreaming. I poured my heart and soul into the scholarship essay, recounting my passion for storytelling, my quiet observations of the world, and, subtly, the feeling of being an outsider looking in. I didn't mention my family's favoritism directly, but the undercurrent of longing for a place where I truly belonged, where my voice mattered, was palpable. When Chloe and my mother returned, they were a whirlwind of sun-kissed skin, souvenir stories, and an almost unbearable aura of shared joy. Chloe's hair was streaked lighter from the sun, and she wore a delicate beaded necklace she'd bought from a local artisan. My mother had a new, brightly colored scarf and a perpetually blissful expression. "Eleanor, darling, look at you. You've been working so hard, haven't you?" my mother exclaimed, giving me a perfunctory hug. Chloe barely acknowledged me, immediately launching into a detailed account of a snorkeling adventure she'd had. "You should have seen the fish, Ellie. So vibrant. You would have loved it. But then again, you're not really the adventurous type, are you?" she said with a dismissive laugh, as if my absence was due to my personality, not their deliberate choice. I nodded, feigning interest, my gaze distant. I let them talk, let them revel in their shared memories. Every anecdote, every inside joke, every piece of exotic candy they offered me felt like a deliberate act of exclusion. I observed them, a detached scientist studying specimens, noting their smugness, their obliviousness, their utter lack of empathy for what they had put me through. The days turned into weeks. Chloe continued to regale anyone who would listen with her vacation tales, often interjecting with, "Oh, Mom and I just had the best time," or, "Ellie, remember that little shop Mom and I found? You would have loved the jewelry." Each time, my mother would smile, complicit in the subtle torture. My father, sensing the tension, tried to bridge the gap. "So, Eleanor, what have you been up to while they were away? Any exciting projects?" I gave him vague answers, unwilling to share my budding dreams with a family that had so casually dismissed my own. Then came the letter. It arrived in a thick envelope, emblazoned with the crest of the writing program in Ireland. My hands trembled as I opened it. I scanned the first paragraph, then the second, my heart hammering against my ribs. I had been accepted. Not only that, but I had been awarded a full scholarship, covering tuition and accommodation. My essay had resonated with the selection committee. The letter spoke of my unique voice, my keen observations, my potential. I held the letter, a wave of triumph washing over me, followed by a fierce, quiet joy. This wasn't just a trip, it was an affirmation. It was something I had earned entirely on my own, born from their rejection. I didn't shout, I didn't jump for joy. I folded the letter carefully and placed it back in its envelope, a secret weapon in my arsenal. The time for my revenge was approaching. I decided to wait for a specific occasion, my mother's annual summer garden party. It was a big affair, attended by all our relatives, family friends, and even some of my mother's colleagues. It was the perfect stage. I continued to work, saving every penny from my part-time job. With the scholarship covering the program, I needed money for the flight, spending money, and to prove a point. I worked extra shifts, saved meticulously, and even took on a few freelance writing gigs I found online. My determination was unwavering. 2 weeks before the garden party, I booked my flight to Ireland. It was a direct flight, a good airline, and I paid for it myself. The feeling of clicking confirm and seeing the debit from my own account was more satisfying than any souvenir Chloe could have brought back. On the day of the garden party, our house buzzed with activity. My mother was flitting around, directing caterers, arranging flowers, ensuring everything was perfect. Chloe was holding court with a group of cousins, once again retelling a particularly dramatic anecdote from her vacation. I watched them, a small, knowing smile playing on my lips. As the party reached its peak, my mother gathered everyone's attention for her usual toast. Thank you all for coming. It's wonderful to see so many familiar faces. This year has been full of joy and adventure for our family, especially for my dear Chloe, who had the most wonderful graduation trip abroad. She beamed at Chloe, who preened under the attention. This was my cue. I cleared my throat, a little louder than intended, drawing a few curious glances. My mother paused, annoyed, but tried to smooth it over. And, of course, we're also proud of Eleanor for her hard work in school. It was a dismissive afterthought, a familiar pattern. I stepped forward, holding the scholarship letter in my hand. My voice, usually soft, was clear and steady. Actually, Mom, there's something I'd like to share with everyone, if you don't mind. My mother's smile faltered, a flicker of apprehension in her eyes. Chloe looked at me, a mixture of surprise and irritation on her face. The chatter in the garden slowly died down. All eyes were on me. As many of you know, I began, my gaze sweeping across the faces, lingering for a moment on my mother and Chloe. I didn't get to go on the family trip with Mom and Chloe this summer. My mother explained that they simply couldn't afford 2 tickets. I paused, letting the implication hang in the air. A few murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some of our relatives knew about the exclusion, and I could see sympathy in their eyes. While they were enjoying the sun and sea, I continued, my voice gaining strength. I decided to use my time a little differently. I worked, I saved, and I applied for something I've dreamed of for years. I held up the envelope. I'm thrilled to announce that I've been accepted into a prestigious summer writing program in Ireland, with a full scholarship covering tuition and accommodation. A ripple of excited applause broke out. My father, who had been standing quietly at the back, looked genuinely surprised and proud. Aunt Helen, who had flown in for the party, clapped enthusiastically. My mother's face was a mask of shock, her carefully composed smile completely gone. Chloe stared at me, her mouth slightly agape. But that's not all, I said, my voice cutting through the applause. You see, Mom told me they couldn't afford 2 tickets. But what she didn't tell me, and what I later discovered, was that not only did she pay for Chloe's ticket, but she also transferred a significant amount of money into Chloe's account for excursions and spending money, an amount I might add that would have more than covered my own economy class ticket.
The garden fell silent, an absolute suffocating silence. You could hear a pin drop. All eyes, which had been on me in congratulation, now swiveled to my mother and Chloe, their faces a horrifying blend of guilt and indignation. My mother's face was ashen, her cheeks flushing a deep, angry red. Chloe looked like a deer caught in headlights, her tan suddenly seeming to drain from her face. So, I finished, my voice calm, almost detached. While I'm incredibly grateful for the scholarship, I also want to thank Mom for her unique way of motivating me. Because being told I wasn't worth the expense, being lied to about financial hardship, pushed me to work harder than I ever have before. It pushed me to earn my own way, to create my own opportunities, and to truly understand the value of self-reliance. I held up my plane ticket, and I'm happy to say my flight to Ireland, which I paid for entirely myself, departs in 2 weeks. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by a few coughs and uncomfortable shifts from the guests. My mother's eyes were wide with a mixture of fury and humiliation. Chloe looked utterly mortified, her vacation glow completely extinguished. My father stepped forward, a hand on my shoulder, a look of profound regret and pride in his eyes. "Eleanor, how could you?" my mother finally whispered, her voice laced with venom, her face contorted. "You've humiliated me in front of everyone." I looked at her, my gaze steady. "Humiliation, Mom, is being told you're not worth the cost of a plane ticket, while your sister is lavished with spending money for a trip that was supposed to be for everyone. Humiliation is being lied to, repeatedly, by the people who are supposed to love and protect you." I didn't wait for a response. I simply turned and walked away, leaving a stunned garden party in my wake. My father followed me, pulling me into a tight hug. "I'm so sorry, Eleanor," he murmured into my hair. "I should have seen it. I should have done something." His words were a balm, a small comfort in the raw aftermath. The fallout was immediate and explosive. My mother was furious, yelling at me for days, accusing me of being cruel and ungrateful. Chloe was sullen, refusing to speak to me, her resentment palpable. But the guests, our relatives, they saw the truth. Many approached me quietly later, offering congratulations and thinly veiled condolences for my family situation.
Some even confronted my mother directly, questioning her actions. The facade of our perfect family had been irrevocably shattered. My trip to Ireland was everything I had dreamed of and more. I flourished in the writing program, finding my voice, connecting with like-minded individuals, and exploring a beautiful, inspiring country. I sent postcards to my father and Aunt Helen, but none to my mother or Chloe. The distance, both geographical and emotional, felt liberating.
When I returned, things at home were irrevocably changed. My mother and I maintained a polite but distant relationship. The warmth and easy affection she showed Chloe were never extended to me. Chloe and I rarely spoke, the chasm between us too wide to bridge. My father, however, made a concerted effort, spending more time with me, listening, offering support. He admitted his past failures and tried to make amends, a small step towards healing. I learned a profound lesson that summer. I learned that sometimes the greatest acts of love and validation have to come from within. I learned that I was capable of forging my own path, creating my own opportunities, and finding my own worth, even when those closest to me failed to see it. The vacation they denied me became the catalyst for my liberation, the spark that ignited my independence. And in the end, that was a far more valuable journey than any beach trip could have ever been.